Good evening, and welcome to today's broadcast of The African Magazine. We will begin the show with Africa Week in Review, our news segment. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan said last Friday that he was pleased at recent progress made by officials from Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia towards restoring peace to the Mano River Union, the MRU, which comprises the aforementioned countries. He added that he welcomed a proposed MRU presidential summit to be held early next year. The UN, Annan said, would support the MRU member states in their common efforts to create the necessary atmosphere for enhancing and disseminating a culture of peace in the sub-region. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni last Friday called on the governments of developed nations to open up their markets to goods from developing countries. Museveni was quoted as saying, "Teachers of democracy, fair play, and creators of a level playing field should not be undemocratic." He added that European countries and other developed nations had implemented policies which restricted goods from developing countries from entering their markets. The United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP, is expected to dispatch a team of technical experts to Zimbabwe soon to work out details and mechanism on the implementation of the Abuja Agreement, which was recently established. The team of experts is drawn from countries that took part in September's Abuja talks between the Zimbabwe and British governments, under which London again agreed to fund legal, transparent, and rational land reforms in Zimbabwe. In a recent statement by British Prime Minister Tony Blair, he called for the international community to back a partnership for Africa between the developed and the developing world based around the New Africa Initiative. More now on this story from Iyamide Thomas reporting from London.
British Prime Minister Tony Blair recently played host to the leaders of Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, Botswana, Senegal and Mozambique at an informal meeting held at his country residence, Chequers. The meeting, which was also attended by two British ministers, Baroness Amos, Minister for Africa at the Foreign Office, and Claire Short, the Minister for International Development, provided a relaxed forum for the discussion of a recovery plan for Africa known as the New African Initiative. The invited group of reforming, forward-looking presidents with clear-cut ideas of how they want their countries to develop included two of the plan's main sponsors, President Obasanjo of Nigeria and President Wade of Senegal. Tony Blair, who has pledged that partnership with Africa would be a priority for his administration's second term in office, was instrumental in getting the G8 leaders at their July summit in Genoa to discuss Africa at much of their pre-summit outreach event. President Obasanjo, President Wade, and South African President Thabo Mbeki were among 5 African leaders who presented the New African Initiative to the G8 leaders. Tony Blair has appointed Baroness Amos as his personal representative on the G8 group. The meeting at Chequers provided opportunity for more brainstorming on the New African Initiative and a chance for Prime Minister Blair, who does not know Africa particularly well, to meet with some like-minded African leaders. The New African Initiative offers hope to a continent trying to carve its own niche in the global marketplace. However, African leaders realize they must bring an end to conflict on the continent if there is to be investment and growth. This is Iyamide Thomas in London, reporting for The African Magazine.
The bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998 were among the first wave of attacks directed against the U.S. by the Al-Qaeda network. The attack on the Kenyan and Tanzanian embassies were followed by another attack in Yemen, on the USS Cole, in which 19 sailors perished, and then most recently, the attacks at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Joining us here today to talk about the initial target in this wave of attacks against U.S. interests around the world is Tanzanian Ambassador to Washington, His Excellency Mustafa Nyanganyi. Good evening and welcome to Africa Watch. With us this evening is Ambassador Nyanganyi. We will be talking to Ambassador Nyanganyi about recent events that happened in the U.S. Ambassador Nyanganyi is the representative from Tanzania to the U.S. He's the ambassador from Tanzania to the U.S. Good evening, Ambassador.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
Good. Where were you on the day of the recent attacks on the World Trade Center, and what were your thoughts?
Well, I had left my residence at about 8:45, And I was driving from Bethesda to my work in DC. And on the way, on the radio, we heard the news of the first strike on the World Trade Center. On arrival at my office, I went straight into our conference room where we have a television set. Then we saw the second attack with my own eyes on television. I was shocked. I was devastated. The memories of the attack in Tanzania of August 7th, 1998 came vividly in my mind. And later I was angry. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
I'll explain later why I was angry.
Okay. Do you feel that African nations have a part in this coalition building and this war on terrorism?
Well, certainly they do. First of all, I was heartened by the fact that we were called to a meeting at the State Department after the prayers at the Washington chapel, to be informed by the Assistant Secretary for African Affairs that, without exception, all our heads of state from Africa had sent letters of condolences to the President and to the American people and declaring their support. Because of that declaration of support from the African people, and in the course of days, the US administration defined how the war is going to be fought on all fronts, on the diplomatic front, on the financial, following the financial trails of the terrorists and all that. Yes. Africa has a role to play in the sense that they have to tighten their immigration border crossings. Mm-hmm. They have to cooperate in looking into the financial trails of the terrorists. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we have a role to play.
Okay. Do you feel, however, though, that the US should be able to respond unilaterally to these attacks, or that it should go through the UN or such bodies?
At the moment, that question does not arise, actually, because the President Bush and his administration have handled the situation very well. They did not. They have the capacity. They have the military power to go unilateral in pursuing the terrorists. But instead, wisely, they chose to build a coalition of all peace-loving nations in the world, and therefore, and the United Nations have already held a general debate on terrorism, and there are resolutions that have been adopted. So the course of action that has been adopted by the United States government of building an international coalition to hunt down these terrorists is the best approach.
Have any parallels been drawn by the Tanzanian population between the attacks on the World Trade Center and those that occurred in Tanzania in the past?
Of course they are. If you follow what happened on August 7th, 1998, and the investigations and the trials that followed, it is the same Al-Qaeda group that perpetrated the terrorist attack on the US Embassy in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi in 1998. So it's the same organization that has perpetrated. That's one. Mm-hmm. Two, the same target. Mm-hmm. It's Al-Qaeda targeting U.S. interests everywhere. Mm-hmm. So they hit the embassy, the U.S. embassy in Nairobi, and they hit the U.S. embassy in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. The same. So it is a continuation of the terrorists hunting. They declared horrible acts against the United States.
Mm-hmm. I understand you saying that there's a connection and that there's this group. However, has any proof been presented? Has any proof been gathered that points directly to them?
Yes. As far as the bombings in Tanzania, the American embassy in Dar es Salaam, yes. Because the arrested guys were tried in New York, and if you follow the trial, it led to there were confessions made, and Al-Qaeda was the one that organized and perpetrated the acts in the bombing of the two embassies in East Africa. And for the recent attacks, all indications are and law enforcement agencies, the Attorney General, Justice Department, the British Prime Minister yesterday, and other world leaders who have access to the investigations have confirmed that it is Al-Qaeda and that has perpetrated this organization. Now, if you want further proof, well, judicial proof. Now that's a different matter. You have to arrest these people, those who are remaining, because the 19 hijackers perished in the crashes. Yes. Unless their accomplices are arrested and trials are held, then we will get to the bottom of the real proof will come. But all indications are, according to the investigations, point to Al-Qaeda.
Okay. What type of steps were taken in Tanzania to bolster security after the embassy bombing there?
Of course, naturally, immediately an act like that happens, security was tightened in all embassies, not only American embassies, in all government buildings and in all major installations. And of course, there was a heightened security alert in all our border crossing points. We have 8 countries, you know, we border. Wow. Mozambique on the south and Malawi. Southwest there is Zambia. West there is Democratic Republic of the Congo. Then you have Burundi, you have Rwanda, you have Uganda, and to the north you have Kenya. So we have that long border.
Quite a few neighbors.
Which we immediately following the bomb explosion at the embassy, the border was closed, and to ensure that nobody got out, so that the investigations nobody should run away from the arm of the law enforcement. And I must say, there was tremendous cooperation between our criminal investigation department and the FBI here, who arrived on the scene the following day. It was a Friday that was the bomb went off, and they were there the following day, Saturday morning, and the investigation started then. Did
they arrive after the invitation of the Tanzanian government?
Well, we were both attacked. Americans were attacked, but they were attacked on Tanzanian soil. They didn't need an invitation. The usual procedure, of course, is we gave them the visas to go.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Do you feel that there is now a sentiment that having a United States embassy or American embassy in one's country is seen as a liability by local populations?
No, not at all, please. Terrorists hit everywhere. Mark, let me take you back to our history, Tanzania history. We were the headquarters of the OAU liberation movement, and most of the leaders of the freedom movements of Southern Africa were resident in Tanzania because of the role that we were playing given to us by the Organization of African Unity. And I remember way back in the mid-70s, Eduardo Mondlane, who was the leader of the Frelimo party, the Frelimo liberation movement then, was bombed in his residence with a bomb sent into a book, a parcel, and he opened the book and he was killed instantly. Wow. Mid-70s. So whether you have American embassy or not, the terrorists, they will hit you whenever they feel you are working against their interests. Right. Not only that, after the 1998 bombing, we had recently, this year, we had a few bombs exploding in Dar es Salaam.
Really?
Yeah. But these were politically motivated.
I see.
No major damage, but there were a few bombs that one was detonated at a major electricity facility, but one was planted at the ruling party headquarters, and it blew up out a door. Wow. And luckily, nobody was injured. Okay. So we have those fanatics who don't care about other people's lives.
Okay. Has a sub-regional task force come together in East Africa to handle these types of incidents?
Oh, yes. You know, East Africa, which comprises Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, did have an East African community way back in the 1960s. It didn't survive. It collapsed sometimes in 1977. I'm happy to tell you that we have revived that community. So Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania are back. They've re-established the East African community headquartered in Arusha, and they have signed a new treaty establishing that community. One of the treaty articles in the treaty establishes a security cooperation agreement between the three states.
Okay.
So sub-regional organizations have a role to play in this.
Good.
Go to West Africa. If it wasn't for ECOWAS, who intervened in the problems in Liberia and Sierra Leone, I don't know where we would be today. So sub-regional organizations in Africa have a role to play.
Okay. On a more pleasant note, how is Tanzania doing in its internal affairs?
Well. I think you know it, like everybody else know. We are still peaceful. There is tranquility in Tanzania, despite our economic problems, which all developing countries have. But politically we're stable, and we don't have any major problems in Tanzania. Economically we're also stable. We have recorded economic growth, GNP of economic growth of an average 4% for the last 4 or 5 years.
Good.
And we're on the right track with our economic reforms, our political reforms. Mark you, we started with, we have 13 political parties, too many. But the situation is now settling down. The real political parties that matter are about 3 or 4.
Okay.
They have representatives, elected members in parliament.
What is the general sentiment as we move into the information age, and how is Tanzania coping with that, from the industrial to the information?
Well, the general sentiment is Tanzanians for a long time have been an optimistic people. We don't easily despair and throw up our arms in despair. No. We are endowed with a lot of natural resources which are unexploited. We are beginning, for the last 4 or 5 years, we have begun to exploit our natural resources like diamonds, golds, and gemstones, trying to use natural gas, which is plenty in Tanzania, to turn it into electricity. We are optimistic, and because of the reforms and prudent physical management of the economy, creating a conducive atmosphere for investors to come in, which they have in the mining and in the industrial sectors. Our outlook is we think we are reaching a point where the benefits of our economic development efforts will be felt by the majority of the ordinary people in Tanzania.
Okay. Well, with all this in mind, would you say Tanzania follows a sustainable development model, or does it hew its own path as far as what one would consider development?
We did try to go our own path, build our own kind of African socialism. We called it Ujamaa then. It had great successes, but it had also its shortcomings. And since 1986, we began liberalizing our economy, giving the private sector a more prominent role. And right now we are part of the world economy, globalizing actually. We have to be part of the global economy. And we have programs with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund helping us in the various tasks of the privatization of the public enterprises and restructuring our budget, instituting civil service reforms, instituting an improvement in our education standard. There is the education reform, strengthening our health care delivery system in what is called health care reform program, and urban rehabilitation program. We have that program, and we are also linking ourselves to the international market as we used to be, because we do export substantial amounts of agricultural produce like coffee, tea, cotton, cashew nuts, and the like.
Sounds like you guys are working really hard in Tanzania.
We are trying, and that's why I said the people are optimistic because the government cannot do that. The actual people who do the farming are the smallholder farmers. 80% of them in rural Tanzania.
Well, what of the ethnic conflicts? Lately, we've also been hearing about, as far as you mentioned your borders, you've got all these borders, and many of the countries you have mentioned are places where there is strife. And how is the government handling it in Tanzania in terms of keeping its borders secure and making sure that the conflict doesn't spill over into Tanzania?
Right. Tanzania has escaped the wrath of this ethnic conflict due mainly to three factors. One, sheer luck.
Okay.
Second, I think God's blessing. But third, we were lucky in the sense that we had a visionary leader by the name of the first president, founding president, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. He inherited a nation in 1961, that's the year we got independence, December 9th, 1961. A nation which had 122 small, tiny tribes in a population of 8.5 million then. Today, we are 32 million. The same tribes, 122. Each of the tribes is a minority in the 32 million total. So it is in the interest of no tribe at all to promote tribalism or ethnicity because they will just simply lose out. That's one factor. That's why I said sheer luck. I'm Tanzanian. I was born in Tanzania. We found ourselves in a country with 122 tribes, small tribes.
So it's sort of
not a major
tossed salad model,
right,
as opposed to a melting pot
so
model.
So there is no major tribe.
I see, yes.
And that's one. But then Mwalimu Nyerere, on seeing that, he used that opportunity to build a nation out of the 122 tribes. What did he do? He promoted a common language, Swahili, which was taught throughout, since primary school, as a medium of instruction. And he avoided these questionnaires whenever you asked about tribe and all that. He said, we don't have to ask a tribe or a religion. Luckily also, we have the two religions are almost on equal strength. You would say 45-45 or 45-40 Muslim Christian or Christian Muslims, and then the remainder 10% atheists.
Okay.
So it is in the interest of none of the religions to promote religious strife because the other religion is not a minority. Each of them are really strong. And so it's in the best interest for everyone to live, to have religious tolerance. And Mwalimu Nyerere worked hard on that one,
okay, well,
emphasizing that religion is a private affair between the individual and the Almighty God.
Well, taking it to a larger scale model, what is your opinion then on the African Union? Since you guys in Tanzania seem to have been able to solve your own internal tribal divisions, what advice do you then have for the African Union and the outlook for that, the new African Union?
Well, right from the very beginning, Mwalimu Nyerere and the visionary leaders of that time believed, like the Kwame Nkrumahs and others, believed that Africa would be stronger if it is united. That's why they founded, Tanzania and others founded the Organization of African Unity. After that, it worked for a while. The successes are, of course, the OAU helped liberate the rest of Africa from colonialism. And the time, I think, has come, Tanzania and others are also founding members of the African Union. We believe in African unity. Unity is strength.
Well, thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been very most informative.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you will come for another interview with
Anytime.
Africa Watch.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to our editorial segment, Drum Beat. Actually, Drum Beat is a segment we've created as a vehicle for viewers who would like their commentary and oppositions on issues relating to our broadcast to be aired on camera for this program. To do this, all you have to do is send us a one-page letter with your comments, and we'll bring our camera to you so that your comments or feedback can be aired. After our premiere broadcast last week, someone inquired, what do we feel about our efforts? I would rather have it the other way around, which is more to the point. What does the general public think specifically about last week's debut? But since this person wants to know first how we at AMI feel, and in the name of fairness, here it goes. It went well, smoothly, without a hitch. No, seriously, I think we've hit the ground running. We're listed in the Sunday Washington Post TV Week, which says we come on every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. on this station. We have programs lined up for next month and beyond. But enough from us. We'd rather have the audience speak, so I'll tell you what the other people have to say. In fact, I'll tell you that they have nothing to say. No news is good news, as is said. Perhaps that's why our questionnaire wanted to know, firstly, how we felt. Yet Yamide, our correspondent in London, squeezed out a moment and got a comment here and there. So here's one, and I quote, Yamide, yes, I guess that inaugural show, the aim was to educate the viewers about fragmented aspects of West African history, as interpreted by Kwame Fitzjohn and the fellow from Howard. This, of course, assumes that those tuning in know little about West African history or would like a refresher course. I will give it another try next weekend, end quote. Actually, this piece should have read as interpreted by Cecil Riddle-Koroma, the writer, and narrated by Kwame Fitzjohn. Interpreted by the fellow from Howard, that is quite correct. Just that that fellow is quite a fellow with a capital F, we might say. Dr. Suleiman Nyang, former chair of the Howard University Department of African Studies and an authority on African studies and Islam. In fact, as of this program, we'll roll the credits a little less quickly so viewers get to know what this person did and what the other person did. However, collectively, we've come together to create a positive balance in our societies at home and abroad. On behalf of the African Magazine, see you next week.